Thanks everyone for joining. This is a Zoom briefing with Colorado Business Roundtable, and our topic today is Colorado Housing Consortium. And we're very interested in hearing from our two special guests. Many of you may know that what is top of mind for Colorado businesses is housing. When we're trying to hire talent, retain talent, one of the top issues is making sure that all Coloradans have a great place to live. And that's one of the best ways to retain and attract talent here for Colorado. So this actually came up as one of the number one issues for our board of directors to focus on, to see how we can continue to be a force for good in the community and focus on an issue that really is top of mind. So with that, we did some work to also understand what's happening in the ecosphere around housing policy, housing coalitions, housing reform, and wanted to bring two thought leaders to you today to provide a Zoom briefing on this very important topic. So I'm going to kick it off by introducing to you Jamie Van Leeuwen. He will set the stage for the conversation, and then Katie Colton will follow up with some of the details. But Jamie, welcome to the call. I'll just do a quick intro for you and then have you kick us off with the framing. Many of you know Jamie Van Leeuwen. He is a distinguished public policy leader and social justice advocate with over 15 years of public service, currently serving as managing director of the BuildStrong Foundation, founder of the social impact firm Bucephalus, and chief of philanthropic partnerships at Fathom. He is also the founder of the Global Livingston Institute, a non-governmental organization in East Africa focused on poverty alleviation, and previously served as a trusted advisor to Mayor and Governor John Hickenlooper here in Colorado. So kick us off, Jamie, on this important topic, and welcome to the Zoom briefing.
Great. Thanks, Debbie. That's a very gracious introduction. And it's good to be here with you today and with all the folks from the Business Roundtable. Obviously, I have been very close to the Roundtable since my Hickenlooper days. You all have been great allies and partners in the work we're doing. And Katie and I are super excited to be here today because, like you all, we understand the incredible urgency around addressing the affordable housing crisis here in Colorado. And so when I joined Pat Hamill at the BuildStrong Foundation, obviously they have a workforce development component that is the BuildStrong Academy that places folks through training opportunities into the workplace and provides them with jobs in the construction industry. But on the other side of it, Pat asked me to really focus on the affordable housing side of things. And the way that we did that was through a great partnership with the governor's office, the Colorado Housing Finance Authority, and McKinsey came to the table and said, hey, this is a priority for us as well. And we're really committed to the issue and willing to invest time and resources. And so they put about $2 million into providing us with talent and access to their research arm to really better understand this issue. And one of the folks who joined our team was Katie Colton, who's been working to assemble a group of public sector, private sector, and nonprofit sector leaders throughout the country or throughout the state to really assemble what has now become the Housing Consortium. And that Housing Consortium was really designed to say, how do we identify what are 3 or 4 issues that we could be collectively working on to really move the needle and lower the temperature on affordable housing. So before we had a big committee appointed or before we made the work that we were doing more public, we really wanted to roll up our sleeves, get the folks who understood affordable housing around the state, electeds, developers, policymakers, and really help us think through where are the areas that we could really focus and move the needle. And so what you're going to hear from us today is the results of that work. Katie and a team of over 100 community leaders have really assembled a very formidable plan that we believe that we could advance to work collectively throughout the state to address some of these issues. We're excited to have you all at the table because there is room for everyone on this. There's not a single community in the state that's not being impacted by the affordable housing issue. And so what we're looking to today is, one, to educate you all in terms of some of the work that we've been doing, but also to really enlist your support and ideas and thoughts around how do we move this forward. So Katie's going to walk us through the consortium, and then we can open up for questions and conversation. So thank you all for making time for us today. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague and an extraordinary analyst policy thinker and really has been driving the brains behind the Housing Consortium. So Katie Colton, thanks for taking us to the next step.
Yeah, thank you, Jamie, and thank you all for being here. It's great to be here with you. Debbie, thank you so much for hosting us. I'm going to go ahead and share a slide deck. I'd like to just kind of level set us all on sort of the problem we're looking to address through the Housing Consortium, and then would love to share with you all what we're currently working on and how you can get involved or share feedback if you have it. So hopefully you all can see my screen. But just to kind of share where we're at in housing in Colorado, the state demographer last year shared a report that stated we need just over 100,000 housing units to meet the 2023 housing shortfall. If we look at affordable units specifically, so those that are, 50% of the area median income and higher, that number actually grows to 130,000. In order to prevent the shortfall from getting any larger, we need to build an additional 34,000 units of housing statewide per year. We're currently building about 45,000 units per year in Colorado, and so that is a significant jump from where we currently are just to maintain that gap with projected growth across the state. One topic that has especially been top of mind lately that a lot of people have been talking about is home ownership. So, median home prices in Colorado are around $600,000. That does not allow for starter homes and first-time home buyers to see a lot of opportunity to purchase a home and own a home here in Colorado. So our analysis that we did last year showed that about 42% of households in Colorado can't afford to buy a housing unit priced over $300,000, but only 10% of units statewide are priced under $300,000. So we have a big gap matching issue that we need to address. And then 33% of households across both homeownership and rental households in Colorado are cost burdened. If we look only at renters, that number raises to about 50%. And we define cost burdened as a household spending more than 30% of their income on housing. And so for you all here at the Business Roundtable, I'm sure you're seeing this in the form of, employees not being able to stay in Colorado or not being able to recruit talent to Colorado if they're not able to afford homes here. And so it's really important to our economy that we address this issue and come together across sectors to do so. Here's just a couple of Colorado's development realities. I'm not going to go through all of these, but we're sort of at a point here in Colorado where we've hit death by 1,000 cuts, right? So it's not just one thing, one solution that will fix this housing issue. There are many things that we need to look at and address all at once across funding and financing sources, local control, local policy, some market factors around interest rates, workforce challenges, insurance and risk, the time it takes to build here in Colorado, and then community level barriers like neighborhood resistance and concerns around displacement that are very real and need to be addressed thoughtfully. So I'm going to shift now into a little bit about why the Housing Consortium was formed. Jamie touched on this quite a bit, but really what we wanted to do was see if we could bring together a cross-sector group to really block and tackle solutions. We felt like there's a lot of incredible work going on around the state. Some of that work is happening in silos, and some of that work could be accelerated if we worked better together across sectors. And so we're a cross-sector collaborative. We accelerate housing solutions. We do that by activating leadership, finding the right solutions that are high impact and pursuing them, providing the project management and implementation. So the Housing Consortium, we have a small staff and we actually help move these initiatives forward so that folks that do this for a living don't have to work, an additional 100% on top of their day jobs to make some of these things happen. And then we're working now to measure and communicate some of those results. And so we like to say here that solution is our only agenda. We're really focused on things that we can move from idea to pilot to action and scale so that we can really start seeing some effects of this work bringing down the cost of housing statewide. This is just an overview of some of the organizations that have been involved in the Housing Consortium. Anybody is welcome to come to our meetings. We have full Housing Consortium meetings about twice a year. It's been a very grassroots effort, as Jamie said. And so if you want to get involved, you're welcome at the meetings and you're welcome to join us. We're looking for people that have good ideas, that want to roll up their sleeves and really help dig into some of these solutions. We are co-chaired by Maria DeCambra at the Department of Local Affairs and Pat Hamill, who founded Oakwood Homes and now runs the BuildStrong Foundation. And we're really focused on getting that good balance of public and private sector and nonprofit sector opinions and thoughts so that we can drive forward solutions that are best for the whole of Colorado. In December of last year, we started getting a lot of momentum with some of the initiatives, which I'll go over in just a couple of minutes. And we were able to stand up our advisory council. And so here are just some of the members of that advisory council. We have representation across state, local, and federal government, as well as private sector, nonprofit developers, for-profit developers, some financing folks on here, and really trying to focus on making sure that this advisory council can keep us as that neutral body. One of the reasons we've been so successful to date with some of our initiatives is that we are neutral, and so we're not driven by any one agenda. We are really focused on our mission to provide more housing statewide, however that might look. So I'd like to talk now a little bit about some of the initiatives that we've been working on over the last year. Just to kind of step back quickly before I jump into the initiatives themselves, we brought about 35 folks into a room in March of 2025 when we launched that worked across sectors in housing, executive level folks who were really innovative and willing to roll up their sleeves. We had done a bunch of research before that McKinsey and Company supported, where we did a survey through Housing Colorado, about 200 plus individuals that work statewide across housing. We asked them what the biggest challenges and innovative solutions could be, and we chose sort of the top 12 answers. We did an impact sizing of if we addressed each of those things, how many units might that add? What might that do to the cost or the timelines for construction? And we had the group look at all of this analysis and then debate what are 3 things that we could work on together and actually make some real progress on over the next year or two. So we went ahead and did that, and they chose 3 solutions, which has since expanded into 4 solutions. So I'll sort of go over each of those now. This is what we're working on in the current moment, but we are currently starting to source our next wave of initiatives and ideas so that we can continue kind of addressing all of those things on that first couple of slides I showed you, and find cost savings wherever we can get it, add supply wherever we can. So the first solution that we're really focused on is a common application. One thing we heard from a lot of developers was that it's really hard if you need public subsidy in an affordable housing project to apply to the Colorado Housing Finance Authority, then the Division of Housing at the state, and sometimes your local government. The timelines don't always add up. The applications are similar, but not close enough. So you have to actually redo a lot of that work, even though it's almost the same. And a report from the Turner Center in California showed that every additional public source of funding, I think they did an analysis across about 13 states or so, added about $20,000 per door for big projects. And so if you have a 200 unit project, that's a couple $1 million that you could be saving it just in administrative burden and time to complete applications. And so last year we pulled together a group across CHAFA, Division of Housing at DOLA, the Office of Economic Development and International Trade, and the City of Denver to go ahead and try to create a common application across them for public subsidies. Last year, we were able to launch a common spreadsheet for the budget. So they have a common pro forma template that can be submitted to all 4 agencies now. And then later this year, we'll actually launch a full common application. And so we're really excited about that. You can visit housinghubcolorado.com to see a preview of what was done last year and some of that coordination that's been done to date. The second effort that we're looking at is we're partnering with CHAFA and a bunch of others to try to stand up some sort of innovative housing fund. We don't have an official title for it yet, but we've been working on the structuring and the research for that fund. So that fund will look to fill gaps in our current funding and financing system. So things like low-cost construction loans for homeownership opportunities, low-cost loans for preservation and acquisition of affordable or naturally occurring affordable housing, things like non-LIHTC, so housing units that are rental units but don't have housing tax credits as part of them. How can we decrease the cost of capital so that can be passed on to the renters and home buyers? So our goal is that we will have a fund pilot launched by the end of this year that we hope to ultimately, over the next 5 to 10 years, grow to about $1 billion of revolving capital to really help fill in some of these gaps that we have in our housing ecosystem statewide. So in some rural areas, places where we can have workforce housing, in the city, first-time homebuyer opportunities, and beyond. The third topic is enabling innovative construction. So this is really looking at modular construction and modular development. There's a lot of ways now that homes or parts of homes are being built in factories, and that can actually lead in the long term to marginal cost decreases and help lower the cost of the vertical build of a home. There's a bit of a chicken and egg problem in the modular industry where, it's hard to start a factory if you don't have 100% demand capacity for that factory, because the way that a factory works, as you all know, you need to have people working full time. And if you don't have a project to work on, then your staff is sitting around doing nothing. And it's really hard to overcome that without the demand. And so we've been looking at some opportunities here to aggregate demand to help sort of kickstart that industry and really test if that would lower the cost of construction here in the state, especially in rural areas, but also in the metro area. And then we're working on some financing tools that are specific to modular and innovative construction. They have a big upfront deposit in these types of projects that's very different than if you build on site. And so we're just working through what some of those tools could look like and how we could create those products. And then finally, we're looking at land aggregation. This one is really focused on publicly owned land. So in Colorado, we have a lot of state-owned land, school district-owned land, local government-owned land. And some of those parcels are really fit for housing. And so we've been partnering with the Lincoln Institute to create a tool, which I'll talk about on the next page, that helps prioritize parcels better for housing versus other use cases, as well as creating, some toolkits like RFP playbooks and other things for local governments that want to develop housing on land that they own, so that they can kind of see some of those best practices and get developer perspectives on what those best practices are. We are also working with partners to advance some research and tools. So on the right-hand side here, I mentioned the Lincoln Institute on the previous page. They're building a Colorado version of their Who Owns America tool for us. And that will map every publicly owned parcel of land so that elected officials and local government leaders can actually look at their land portfolio, apply a bunch of different suitability metrics, like where is there electricity, where are there transit stops, where are there grocery stores and hospitals, and they can actually make more informed decisions around what parcels of land might be best for housing versus childcare versus parks and recreation versus just holding for a while. And so that tool we're working to share with some government leaders and launch later this year. And then we've been working with the University of Denver and Thrive Economics on building code study. And so they're doing some research comparing the international residential code to the commercial code for building codes to see if right now most housing structures that are 3 units or more get kicked to the commercial code. And so if you're building a fourplex, you're using the same code as a 300-unit apartment building. And so that's adding a lot of costs. And so they're doing some research to understand what that cost difference would be if buildings that were 3 to 8 units were actually on the residential code. And depending on what their findings are later this year, if we find that there could be a big cost savings, we'll then have them do a similar study on safety. So does changing those to residential actually impact safety, yes or no? Which components of it maybe don't so much, and could that actually result in cost savings? So I know that was a lot, and I'm just talking at you all, but those are sort of the things the Housing Consortium is working on right now. As we look to the future, we're really starting to explore other opportunities to partner with business and employers on what they're hearing from their employees, what type of tools around down payment assistance, mortgage assistance, and other things could be really helpful to ensure that we're attracting talent and retaining talent here in our state. And so would love to partner with you all and brainstorm what that could look like. These are just some of our quick outcomes to date. We've launched a bunch of initiatives. Our Housing Hub Colorado Phase 1 launched in just 7 months. That's that common application effort I was talking about. We've done a lot of stakeholder research. We stood up our advisory council, And then this is just an example of what our Housing Hub Colorado website looks like. So I can pause there, Debbie, and if we have any questions, happy to answer those.
Sounds great. Thank you, Katie, for all this work. I don't see any questions in the Q&A yet, but we're going to give folks a minute to put them in, and then I'd love to kick us off with a couple questions. The first that comes to mind for me, this problem has been around a long time. I think we were a part of the very first, probably not the very first, but several different iterations of construction defects litigation reform. Wondering what's next in that alignment, if you're seeing any legislation still coming to try to sort of plug some of those holes. And then I've got a couple other questions for you along those lines as well. And that might be for Jamie too, or for Katie.
That is top of mind, and I'm gonna kick it over to Jamie for that one.
Debbie, thank you for the great pitch to us on this one. I think that it's such an important issue and definitely top of mind for our team and for Pat. And I think that on the construction defect side of things, obviously we've been very involved in advocating for reform. This summer we'll be spending a lot of time based on the current legislation that was passed, looking at kind of what are the barriers to entry right now, and how do we use that research to inform how we look forward in terms of what we're going to need to be able to make sure people start building condos again, or that we start building out our condominium supply. And so obviously I think right to remedy is going to be a huge piece of that. But the summer we're taking an opportunity, and actually just as a nice pitch to what this community is invested in, we have 18 paid young interns this summer from around the state that we've invested in through the foundation community and the business community. Those 18 young people, the program is really designed to engage young people who wouldn't necessarily always have the opportunity to participate in a paid internship. And they're going to be working with us throughout the summer on a number of different affordable housing and community development initiatives around the state. And one of them will be doing some research to better understand kind of what the climate is, what are people saying, are condos being built as a result of the legislation, and what needs to still be done to move things forward. So thank you for that. And we're all always very open to ideas and thoughts in that arena.
Yeah, absolutely. I still live in the house where I raised my kids, and now they're grown, and I'm looking for condos, Jamie, so I can clear out of my house
desperately.
For the next family.
And to your point,
wants a home like mine.
To your point, Debbie, you raised kids, and what we're hearing from a lot of folks is our kids want to actually be able to buy something and to be able to afford something, and we know that condos is one of those options. And so anyway, it's a step forward, and I think that Alice, I think it's Alice Spray.
Yeah, you see the follow-up question. Yeah,
feel
free to grab
comments. The comment there is absolutely accurate. There are a number of different issues that still need to be addressed, and that we're going to be working closely with folks like you all to figure out how do we address those.
Great, thank you, Ali, for dropping that in. The other question on my mind is, probably the other elephant in the room. There's a real desire, I think, from the business community, and especially from developers and maybe home builders, to think about Colorado as a whole and what the hurdles are, whether it's regulatory or otherwise, and perhaps not as excited about a patchwork of regulations. But how do you combine the vision that you're trying to give us for the state of Colorado? How do you wrestle with obviously local control, but also kind of a statewide vision? I think that's another kind of elephant in the room to solve. I'm curious how your coalition is working through that.
Yeah, we're working through it the best we can. I think it's definitely a challenging line to stand on. And one thing that we're really following closely is on the modular side, the state released regional building codes. So we don't have a state building code, where most other states have a statewide building code. And so that causes a lot of issues. for builders, especially because you have 300 different jurisdictions that you need to build to their individual codes. And so on the modular side of things, regional codes are going to be introduced this year, and we're following that really closely to see how that works on the modular side, and if we could look to replicate that at all in other types of buildings, because it is a big issue. And we want to honor local control and respect what our local governments want to do, but also we need to have common designs or accepted designs across jurisdictions if we really want to be able to solve some of these problems related to costs increasing. It's really hard to build custom to that many different jurisdictions. And so we're starting now to do some local government roundtables and really do some stakeholder outreach to see where they maybe are more willing to pilot some things versus not, and start chipping away at that as well.
Katie, just to double down on that, it looks like we have somebody, right as I was asking about kind of the local control piece, added a question that says, one of the priorities you mentioned is accelerating through modular construction and other innovative approaches. What innovations are showing the most promise and where are they happening? You touched on some of that. I don't know if there's anything else that sort of like, okay, let me delve a little deeper in the approach.
Yeah, so in the rural areas of the state, modular and panelized seems to be working really well. There's a significant labor shortage on the western slope. And so if you need to wait, 6 months before you can even have a crew come to start building and you're holding that piece of land, it increases the cost significantly. And so we're looking to modular. Rural Homes is doing some really interesting work there as a solution to the labor shortage, because you can truck the home or pieces of the home there and stand it up in 7 to 10 days versus, being on site for 7 to 8 months. So that's one piece in the rural areas. In other parts of the country, we're seeing some really interesting things happen in the southeast around modular. They're doing it quite at scale. And then in Minnesota. So one of my favorite case studies was Rise Modular, based out of Minnesota, did a project with Minneapolis, where Minneapolis took 16 foreclosed single home properties, knocked those homes down, ordered 96 modular fourplexes and sixplexes, and put them up in their place. And so they were able to take sort of like the value of that single home, turn it into 4 units, and reduce that cost by almost 50% per unit to be able to like house more people in a really smart way, making that big modular build order. And so that brought down the cost of each unit.
That's great. What are you most optimistic about looking ahead? It feels like you've had some really good traction. You've got a lot of the right people at the table. It's a problem that Coloradans can solve. Where do you feel the most optimism?
Yeah, I can answer this first, and then maybe Jamie wants to answer as well. But I think I'm most optimistic. And, when we started this, I thought there would be a lot of public versus private sector tension. And really, everybody wants to come to the table and everybody wants to solve this problem. And so I think a lot of the tension I expected hasn't been there, and people have been really willing to roll up their sleeves. Now, there are a lot of other hurdles and red tape we need to work through on some of these policy pieces. But overall, the consensus across sectors has been like, we need to address this. We agree on the problem. How do we actually get from A to B? And we've been able to do that at a smaller scale with the common application and some other things. And now as we start tackling some of these larger issues like condo defects, we'll be able to hopefully push them a bit faster, right? We've been chipping away at defects for 10 years now. We need a 1 year, 2 year solution if we really want to see first-time homebuyer opportunities in Denver. I don't know, Jamie, if you want to add anything.
No, I mean, the only thing I would add is that I think when we started this, and when Pat and Maria DeCamber co-chaired this and convened the first group, we said, look, after six months of working through this, if we're not making any progress, then there's no point in continuing this. And what's really clear is that there's some wins that we've already been able to achieve. And so I think this is a really complicated issue, and I think affordable housing is really hard to wrap people's brains around, because there's so many different components to it, and it impacts so many different communities in different ways. And so I think what we're excited about is that if community actually rolls up their sleeves and start working together, there are some solutions to this. We can actually we can start addressing affordability in ways, and it's going to take time. It's reminding folks that people need to be patient. But also, I think Pat Hamill's great about reminding us, in a year, if there's not more affordable if housing is not more affordable, or we can't show where we've created more affordable housing, then why are we doing this? And so how do we keep paying attention to that and using the folks who are guiding this process to really push us to be accountable for the work we're doing?
Jamie, give folks, I think you have it in the chat. We're happy to send it out as well with this recording. Give folks an inclination of how they can get involved with the coalition. I know you're looking at all over the state of Colorado, not just Denver Metro. What kind of people do you want involved and how do they do it?
Yeah, we really appreciate. I mean, Debbie, people tuning into this and having these conversations are helpful to us right now. And my hope is that as we're having these conversations, what we tend to see is people reaching out and saying, "Oh, we need to make sure that this committee in the chamber is aware of what you're doing, so that we can, or that we're working on land use issues. So we'd love to figure out how to plug in on that." So we're trying to be really specific when people call and say, "Well, why am I not a part of it, or why did you include?" You are included. Anybody who wants to be included is, I think what we're saying is plug into something that specifically addresses where your interest or your focus is. And so the more we can broadcast this work, I think what we're finding is people coming in and saying, "Oh, we have some resources that could leverage what you're doing around the one-stop shop," or whatever it is that we're working on. Katie, I don't know if you have anything you'd add to that.
I think that's great. I think we're open to all ideas too, right? We're starting with these couple of things, but we know that we need to address the labor market. We know that we need to address condo defects. We know that we need to um, address, build America, buy America, because you can't get doorknobs, and that's a problem for a lot of people. So I think whatever problems that this group is seeing in housing, or if you're not working in housing, hearing from employees or seeing in the market and how it's affecting your business, we want to hear it so that we can come up with like thoughtful, meaningful solutions that really will start moving the needle on this.
Perfect. Well, officially sign Colorado Business Roundtable up as an organization that supports the work, and we would love to
Thank
help
you.
spread the word at your next convening. A complicated problem. We've got to get it right. It affects everybody who lives here, and
Mhm.
all the people that we want to still move here, for sure. So just who wants the last word? Maybe a little bit. Katie, you want to kick us off, and then Jamie, you close us up and you get the last word,
Sure.
but we'll start with Katie. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just grateful for all of you, and for, coalitions like the Colorado Business Roundtable. All of those types of coalitions went into the design of our coalition that we're building on housing. And so, first of all, thank you all for the great work you do, both in your own businesses, but also here at the Roundtable. And then, like I said, would love to get you involved, would love to keep you updated, would love to hear your ideas. And so please don't hesitate to reach out and let us know if you have ideas of how we can partner, how we can work together.
Thanks, Katie. I actually would say there's not really a last word right now. This is a to be continued. That we really need to. The Colorado Business Roundtable knows better than most folks that if we don't address the affordable housing issue in Colorado, the economic impacts and our ability to be a leader in the country as a economic development engine as a state is greatly compromised. And so the impetus is on all of us to work together to address this. So we're excited to be here with you all. And Debbie, we'll also just share all of our contact information with you so you can share it with folks if they need it.
Yeah, perfect. Well said. This isn't the end. These problems are going to be part of what makes up just public policy issues generally. But I'm very optimistic to see such a strong coalition and thoughtfulness around land use, condo defects litigation, all the things. And it looks like you've already got some wins. You've got the right people in the room. So we're excited to be allies of what you're doing as well. So thanks
Great.
for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Again, this has been a Zoom webinar from Colorado Business Roundtable, and we were excited to be joined by Jamie Van Leeuwen and Katie Colton with Colorado Housing Consortium, and we'll send everybody the info. But thanks everyone for joining.
Thanks a lot. Have a good day.
Thanks.